Rod. We've already received an overwhelming...
Good afternoon and welcome to another blockbuster edition of A View from the Stands with myself, Seb Evans. We have a shorter 30-minute show for you this week, but one that promises to be a cracker. Before we start, remember as always to send in your messages and questions for my guest, and I'm sure you'll have lots of them once you hear who is joining me. My guest this week really needs no introduction. Simon Hughes graduated from Durham with a degree in geography and anthropology before embarking on a successful first-class career with Middlesex and Durham. Since his retirement in 1993, he has had an extremely successful career as a cricket journalist for various national newspapers, and of course as the much-loved Analyst on Channel 4's award-winning cricket coverage, during which he won Sports Pundit of the Year in 2002. Of course, we all saw him and his expert analysis during the glorious return of cricket to terrestrial TV for England's recent tour of India. So it's great to have us for the show. Simon, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing in the end of lockdown number 3?
Well, it's nice to be on, Seb. I've actually quite, I know this sounds bizarre, but I actually quite enjoyed lockdown. It's been interesting. I like a challenge, and it has been a challenge, and it's been difficult for many people, but I think I've always been someone who likes to work from home and find different ways of explaining the game. And so I've tried to carry that on.
Great stuff. I noticed on the Channel 4 coverage you were there with a green screen. Was that at home?
Yeah, that was at home. That was in my kitchen. I started a YouTube channel actually in about 2014 and experimented a lot with a green screen. And then, I don't know, various other things took over and my kids sort of started playing with it and, using it for sort of mock pantomimes or something. So I put the green screen away for a little while. I got it out again, you're right, for the Channel 4 coverage. And I've got a kitchen which is quite spacious and not much furniture. So I can pretty much create a sort of full-length pitch idea.
Great stuff. Was it nostalgic for you to be back with Channel 4?
Yes. I mean, I'd like to do more. And, I'm trying to find ways of using the skills I've got and the kind of technology that we've all got used to using now to do more of that kind of thing. Hopefully on a digital space, if not a TV.
Great. And if it's all right with you, I thought we'd start with discussing your time at Durham and as a cricketer, and then move on to your thoughts on England's recent series in India. So on your time at Durham, what's your overriding memory of your degree and your time spent in the Northeast?
I'd say not much work at all. In fact, I'm afraid to admit, I think in one term, I only went to 2 lectures. But I had a sort of excuse because I was playing professional cricket at the same time as studying, and there were 2 tours, one just before the term started and then one at the end. And so I missed sort of 2 or 3 weeks of one term, and that's one of the reasons I didn't go to many lectures. The overriding memory, is, apart from that, is just the racecourse being the most beautiful setting for actually both football and cricket. I played football for uni and cricket, and I just loved the environment. I liked the bank with, spectators able to sort of picnic on it, the river next door, which I don't think I was ever hit into, luckily, though some people were. It also was the venue for the Durham in both, and so it's a very sort of special place for me, the racecourse, plus the pub at the back, the Dun Cow, where we was used to retire to afterwards. So I think, my abiding memory of that was probably, all the kind of capers that went on both off the field and on it during that era on that ground.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of our listeners can relate to that positive feeling about the racecourse. On one of your virtual cricket club podcasts, Andrew Strauss described himself as a bit of a comedy figure during his time at Durham on the cricket pitch. What was your reputation when you were there, but as a budding professional cricketer?
I don't think I was a comedy figure, actually. That came later with Middlesex, probably. But no, we had a tie called the CIR tie, Career in Ruins tie, and it was, it's sort of student jape really, but it was a picture of an anchor with a W on the front. Which you can work out what that spells, and it was given to the idiot of the day, and I didn't win it very often, luckily, and I think it was because I was a fast bowler, and particularly in student cricket, there wasn't too many of those, and plus the pitch actually at the racecourse wasn't great either. So I sort of rather terrorised a lot of opposition. So I definitely wasn't a figure of fun. And I remember one time in a college match, we used to play the trophy, I think it was called, wasn't it, between colleges. And I was at Hildon Bede, and we played Cuths or someone. And there was a character in there who fancied himself a bit as a batsman and came striding out to bat and against my team on the Maiden Castle pitch, which was even more dodgy than the racecourse one, and sort of threatened to take me on and smack me all round. And I bowled him a bounce and broke his cheekbone. So I think I was actually, I injected a bit of fear in a few students, which, didn't carry on once I carried on into professional cricket so much. But certainly as a student, I was quite respected, I'd say, because I could bowl a very fast ball.
Gosh, yeah, I can imagine. From my experience of college cricket, you would be very out of place nowadays bowling that quickly. Am I right in saying you signed a first contract with Middlesex in 1980?
Yeah.
And
it was in my first year of Durham, yeah.
Okay, so you actually had your first professional contract as a student.
Yeah, and in fact, in that first season, so I actually started at Durham in '79, then came down for the summer to play for Middlesex, got straight into the first team, and it so happened that we won both the championship and also what was then the Gillette Cup, which is now, or was then became known as the NatWest. So it was the sort of longer format white ball trophy. Well, it was then still with a red ball, but limited overs. We won 2 trophies that summer, and so I got a bonus of however much, and was briefly dubbed by National Student Magazine as the best, the richest or the best paid student in Britain or something, just for that one season, which just happened to coincide with my first year at Durham.
Gosh, I'm not surprised your degree was difficult to maintain on the side of that. On your podcast, you also said you had a trial match for England against Sri Lanka, was it, in 1981? Mm-hmm. Was that the closest you got to playing Test cricket for England?
Yes, probably. I mean, there was a chance I could have got picked on tour in the mid-'80s, but yeah, that was close. The reason why I had probably better chance then was, in a way, I was a bit of an unknown quantity, and Mike Brearley was the Middlesex captain and also the England captain at the time for that famous 81 Ashes series. And he was a big fan and was sort of pushing me forwards and saying, you should play for England, you're good enough, kind of thing. I didn't really believe it personally, and so I probably didn't do myself justice in that test trial. But yeah, I mean, I could have played perhaps a few games for England, but I don't think it would have been a long-term career really at international level.
Right. And I heard a funny story about you being kept up late the night before that match. And you made a few comments about how county cricket nowadays is sort of very driven and professional. How professional did you find the county scene during your career?
Well, not very. And it depended on who you were with, really. I mean, some players were incredibly dedicated. Jeff Boycott, for example, married to his bat, basically. But there were a lot of things going on off the field, which obviously wouldn't be allowed now. Probably some of it virtually illegal, really. But I mean, no, that's overstating it. They weren't illegal, but they were certainly illicit. And yeah, it was kind of fun. It was a sort of semi-amateur sort of ethos, really. Not much kind of fitness training and lots of sort of ribaldry going on in hotels and so on, which I don't know. It was a bit off-putting at times. It's quite hard to be totally focused when you were, expected to knock a few pints back. I mean, for instance, we had one physio at Middlesex who was a great character, and he liked to challenge the opposition to go to a pub in Paddington near Lords on one of the days of the game and drink all 8 of the real ales in that pub. And you had to knock them all back without eating any food, without throwing up or anything, and then sign a book. And that got you into a sort of elite club. And he challenged various members of opposition teams. I'm pretty sure Derek Pringle was one of them, to come down to his pub after the game, or this pub, and take his challenge. Plenty of people took up the challenge. So, that gives you a sort of sense of perhaps what it was like. But not everybody was like that, but there was certainly an element of players who were like that.
Yeah, it sounds like a bit of a Hatfield Cricket Club social from my experience.
It was good fun, actually. I in a way, I don't wish it had been any different, because you made great friends and it was a really enjoyable time. You didn't get paid much, and perhaps we didn't deserve to get paid much, because we weren't that dedicated, really. But at times change. I think the game is much more professional now, but in a way, I don't think it's any more skillful now than it was then. It's just different.
And with your experience of that sort of county setup, there's been a lot of talk about England's rotation policy in Sri Lanka and India. Do you have great sympathy for the players playing in such sterile environments and going back to a hotel in the ground? Or do you think part of the job of playing for England, they should have, Butler should have stayed for the whole India series?
It's a bit difficult to say for sure without experiencing it. It must be hard. But I bet you, in retrospect, they'll look back on it and say, well, I should have probably stayed, actually. And I think we're a bit soft now on various matters about needing to be at home for certain things. And it's a different generation, brought up a different way, different attitudes. I still think that England should have picked their strongest side for that India tour, the test matches, and they should have persuaded or even told players to stay for the whole tournament, the ones that were going to get picked for that first team. It is difficult because there are massive pressures on these players, but then it's all relative. I mean, there were pressures on England players in the past as well, and they didn't have the security of central contracts and things then. So, there's lots of stuff to be anxious about as a professional sportsman. That doesn't really change. So, yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one. Without being actually in the situation, it's difficult to be too critical. But I think probably the directors of the cricket team, England, should maybe take a slightly tougher stance. But it's difficult for them because they'll then have the health and safety type people, HR type people, kind of suggesting that they're being too rigorous about it, or not, being too dictatorial.
Yeah. Last week we had Terry Blake on the show, the former commercial director of the ECB. And I put the question to him whether he would prioritise the T20 World Cup or a away tour of India. From my perspective, I would have rather England win a test series away in India. Butler was sent home and came back for the white ball. Moeen was sent home, also came back for the white ball and barely played. Do you think the T20 World Cup is as important as they are making it this year?
In a way, I don't actually. No, it's in India. And I don't think that we might win it, we might not. Will anyone really sort of watch that much of it, or remember that much of it? I think if it's a home tournament, yes, you owe it to your public, and England did very well with the 2019 World Cup because they focused on it, they really targeted it, and they won it at home. The T20 World Cup in India, I think is. It's important, but I don't think, in a way, I think what's much more sort of satisfying would be to beat India in a test series.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, India have got an incredible sort of squad of players at the moment, sort of almost 20 players that could make their test team. Do you think England were not good enough, or it's a case of India's team is just too good for almost everyone in India at the moment?
It's a bit of both. The England team in Test cricket hasn't got enough top order batsmen who are top class, and actually, obviously, spinners. That we're lacking really top class spinners as well. So we're always going to struggle in India. But the strength of the Indians is probably the greatest depth of talent they've ever had, brought about principally by the IPL, which just has generated so many more players, so much more resource, excellent grounds, obviously a massive fan base, and it's throwing up players from all sorts of different cities, which are not or were not traditional cricketing cities. So they've got so many more players to choose from now, and as a result, they're dominating the world game.
Yeah, it's interesting that the IPL has been so successful in actually creating test players like Shubman Gill and Rishabh Pant. Do you think the 100 could have a similar effect on English cricket? Are you a fan of this summer's big event?
I am. I think we needed something to sort of bridge the gap between domestic and international, and that's what the IPL has done. It's really hardened or sharpened the skills of players and made them more accustomed to dealing with pressure and big crowds and pressure situations. So if we can replicate that in the 100, and the other thing is also attracting the best talent in the world. I mean, any player that you talk to who's played at the IPL will say, the opportunity to be in a dressing room with AB de Villiers, Virat Kohli, Chris Gale and Pat Cummins is just incredibly great learning experience. It's what I call a cricketing brainstorm, in that you might play against these guys or you might play with them, but you're going to spend some time with them and you can pick their brains, and that's invaluable in your own development. So if that can be replicated in the 100 by attracting the best players in the world, which I think over time, it might not this particular first year, but if they can get a bit more money available to buy the top players, the standard will be incredibly high. The England players will benefit from it, and the crowd will, the audience will love it.
Do you think India have always stopped their best players playing in other overseas franchise tournaments? Kohli's not allowed to play in the PSL or the Big Bash or the 100. Do you think the BCCI has become sort of too all-controlling in the world of cricket?
Yeah, it has, but I think things are changing. And in fact, I've just done a podcast today with the owner of the Rajasthan Royals, who's a good friend of mine. And, I know that his ambition is to get Indian players playing, or induce Indian players to play in England. It will help English cricket, undoubtedly. It will really draw in the South Asian community to watch more English domestic cricket. And it will definitely improve the standard as well. But before that happens, there has to be more money available, because these Indian players, the top ones, are earning massive amounts. I think Kohli, if you look on the list now of highest earning sportsmen in the world, Kohli's in the top 100 with something like $25 million a year, something like that, which is a small fry compared to a Messi or a Ronaldo. But it's still a substantial amount of money, and those Indian players, that's what their expectations are now. So until the 100 generates, decent income and can afford those sort of players, it probably won't get them.
Yeah, we've got our first question, which is from Richard, on the subject of England's sort of spin failings in India. Do you think the county should follow Somerset's lead of putting out spin-friendly pitches to deepen the strength of English spinners?
I really sympathise with Somerset for getting dot points for spinning pitches. I think it's a shame. I think we need more variety in the county pitches in England. One way of achieving that would be to play county cricket throughout the summer, rather than 2 months at the beginning and then a month at the end. To have July, August as a time when spinners can bowl and really flourish, it would be great. But at the moment, there isn't much county cricket. I mean, I think this summer there's no county cricket or very little county cricket between the 2nd of June and about the 30th of August. It's July June and July almost totally dominated by one-day cricket. So that's the time when you'd hope that spinners would really find their feet. And I heard a great stat the other day that Nick Gubbins, a young Middlesex batsman, number 3 batsman, one season a couple of years ago, he faced his first over of spin in July. Yeah. So it's a shame. And there were much more spinning pitches, certainly in July and August in past years. We need to get back to that, because it's a really important and interesting ingredient of the game.
Yeah. Don Bess had a bit of a torrid time towards the India tour, end of the India tour. Do you see a way back for him now as a leading spinner for the Test team?
I do. I think he's talented. I think he's got serious technical issues at the moment which need correcting. But if he does that, he could be a perfectly decent international bowler. At the moment, he's not that good. He's very inconsistent. But with a bit of remedial work on his action, I think he could come back and be good.
And would you put him ahead of Moeen Ali in the pecking order?
Maybe. Thing is, I think with Moeen, you get what you see, or you see what you get. He's not going to change. Moeen is a very consistent performer in that he's always the same. You'll get lots of good balls and a few bad balls, and a great commitment and team ethic that really kind of suffuses his whole being. He's a great character. I don't think he'll ever become a top international spinner, but he'll do you a job. So, England have to seek someone who can be, a bit more skillful. I think the thing with Moeen is he's a bit mechanical as a bowler, and what you want, and what I loved about that India series just gone, was Ashwin, because he's an artist. He's just constantly trying to find ways of undermining the batsman, using different ploys, and he's going home at night to the hotel and plotting how he's going to get them out tomorrow, kind of thing. And that's the sort of spinner that England need.
Yeah, one of the batsmen that really suffered to Ashwin was Ollie Pope. After such a successful tour of South Africa last winter, what do you think he got wrong in India? I saw that he was, of all the batsmen in the series, he played the ball in the danger zone, which is not far enough back and not far enough forward the most. And he often got bowled by balls that didn't actually turn. What do you think he needs to build on for this summer?
Just think he needs more experience of playing in spin conditions. He would never have experienced anything like that. Certainly not against the skill of those bowlers. And it's a very sharp learning curve. And by the end, he was starting to get to grips with it. But I think the pitches were really difficult. And because of the uniformity of pitches in county cricket nowadays, and that lack of spinning pitches and lack of good spinners, there was no experience there. So I feel a bit sorry for him. He's still a fantastic player, and I'm sure he will make a lot of test runs. He needs to work on his technique against spin a bit, but I'm sure that'll come.
And one bowler who was hit hard, rather unfortunately by Brexit, was Simon Harmer, who, if Kolpak hadn't been ended due to Brexit, he could have qualified to play for England and could feasibly have been in India. Do you think England have missed a huge weapon with such a successful county championship bowler?
Yes. I guess, he's not born here, but, neither were Jofra Archer or Robin Smith or, others. So there's no reason why he wouldn't have been able to play for England. And yes, if he had, he would have been a huge advantage. So I guess they have missed a trick, whatever the logistics of it were. He's a fantastic bowler.
Yeah. You've often done a lot of analysis on Joe Root's ability to play spin, which stands out, particularly when the rest of his team look all at sea. What's the key to his approach to playing spin that makes him stand out, do you think?
Being very nimble, having what I'd say are dancing feet, being very, very good at reading length. So very quick to get onto the back foot, to find scoring opportunities, and also to know what those scoring opportunities are, and to be really clear about them. So, for example, he didn't try and sweep Ashwin very much because he knew that Ashwin got more bounce, and so that was a dangerous shot. Whereas the slightly more lower arms of some of the left arm spinners, almost the sweep was his default. So it's I think his clarity of thought, especially on the scoring options, and his nimble footwork, and recognition of length, real precise recognition of what length the ball was and whether he should play forward or back, that only comes with incredibly intensive practice, as well as having some intrinsic skill. He was able to do that in his early 20s when he first played in India. Got 70 on his Test debut. So he's always had that ability, but he's managed to enhance it.
Yeah, I saw Jared Kimber did a piece after his double 100 in Chennai, and he highlighted that before he was made captain, his average was mid to high 50s. He was scoring more runs than Smith, Kohli and Williamson. I was just wondering whether you think England made a mistake in giving him the captaincy simply because he was the best player, and whether that's actually inhibited him from really continuing to score big hundreds ever since 2017.
No, I think possibly technically he's fussed around a little bit with his technique against seam and has at times been found a bit wanting. I felt a couple of years ago that he was not getting across as much as he needed to, and he was being a bit vulnerable around off stump and just outside. So I think his decline was more technical than to do with the captaincy, and he showed in both Sri Lanka and India that being captain wouldn't inhibit his ability to score big hundreds. So I think it's more a technical thing. I mean, also don't underestimate the difficulty of playing several formats. I mean, in his case, he's not playing T20 so much now, but he's certainly playing ODIs and tests, and it's not easy floating between them. Few players have really managed the transition from being successful at both formats. So it's a combination of things, but I don't think giving the captaincy to him was a bad thing, actually. No, or was a mistake.
Yeah, I think he's actually going to end up with the best win percentage of any England Test captain. So
well, there you are then.
Pretty strong statistic. Yeah. Do you think Kohli's the right man for India? Rahane was very successful in Australia with a slightly different style.
I hesitate to ever suggest anything sort of wrong about Kohli because you get a sort of tsunami of complaints. He wears his heart on his sleeve a bit. He can be a bit emotional. He's probably not the easiest person to play under, but he has so many qualities, and one of them is his passion, and another one is just the way he plays. He's such a strong leader, and people can fall in behind him. I don't think he's probably not the best tactician, but someone like Rahane can help there. I think probably what he needs to do is listen a bit more and not just be quite so dominant. And then I'm sure his captaincy would be fine.
Yeah, well, another question we've got is, with all your experience of analysing professional cricket, have you ever been offered a role within a team set up as their team analyst or anything like that?
The short answer to that is no. And it slightly surprises me because I think I could add a lot. In fact, I did approach Lords and the MCC over the 100, the London Spirit team, because I felt I could add something to their recruitment process and even their playing style. And actually Shane Warne encouraged me because he's the coach, and he encouraged me to apply, but there was no money available. They didn't have anything in the budget for that sort of role, so that didn't come to anything. I mean, I'm slightly probably handcuffed by the fact that I haven't got a coaching degree or coaching qualifications. Just never had time. It's not that I don't want to do them. It's just that there's never been the time to sort of do a coaching course, which lasts 2 months. Whether that would have helped me get on to a team, I think I could have. I still could add some valuable insight, but at the moment it's at school level more than any other.
Well, those schools are very lucky to have you on their coaching team. I know you're very busy and you need to get on to the rest of your day. Before you go, I wondered if you could give us a quick introduction to your virtual cricket club, which has been going on weekly for the Professional Cricketers Association.
Well, it started with sort of September, October time when people were being locked down again, and the winter was coming, and cricketers weren't able to go abroad, and obviously club players in particular couldn't go to winter nets or down the pub and have a pint with their mates or whatever. So I thought, well, why don't we put the cricketers who are stuck at home, unable to go abroad to play in the winter, together with these sort of rather frustrated club cricketers and spectators, and give them a bit of a cricketing evening on Zoom, and raise some money for the charity as well. And the charity is Professional Cricketers Trust, which is the charity that supports cricketers, professional cricketers who fall on hard times or have asked for support in some way. And there are more and more of them because of the pandemic. And the funds are pretty low because they haven't been able to do fundraising. So I sort of put that idea together, and we've had an incredible response from the players, with half the England team, lots of ex-players, famous ex-players come on from both from England and elsewhere. We had Steve Smith on, we've had Ian Smith from New Zealand, and a string of people: Root, Broad, Wood, Swan, Tufnell, some of the girls as well, some of the England women. So we've had a really nice cross section of players. It's an hour and a half or so interview, plus audience can ask questions, and there's an opportunity to win memorabilia. So it's quite a sort of nice, compact evening. The best bit of it, I think, is always the quiz. We do a quiz called "How Well Do You Know Yourself?", which is penetrating questions, some of them statistical, some of them more random, about that player that they have to answer. Andrew Strauss is the champion of that quiz so far. Alistair Cook is the wooden spoon holder. So yeah, it's been fun. Just disappointing that we haven't had more members. It's £6 a month to join, which may have put some people off, but we think £6 a month for 4 live events plus various podcasts and things is pretty good value.
Yeah, very good value. So it's on tomorrow evening with David Gow, is that right?
It's on tomorrow evening with David Gow. The week after, we've got Sir Geoffrey Boycott. And then after that, we've got Bumble, I think, and another string of people. Ian Botham we had on doing a wine tasting. He was a bit frustrated because he only did his reds, so now he wants to do his white wines. So he's coming back on. And it's just a nice format. Zoom is a nice format to chat away to people and sort of, see inside their lives, really.
Yeah, well, to all our listeners, make sure you tune in tomorrow evening. Can they buy a ticket on Eventbrite? Is that?
They can. They can buy a ticket on Eventbrite. If you go to my Twitter feed, the Analyst Twitter feed, there's always links on there. And the club is called World's Best Cricket Club, modestly named, not by me. So also you can go to worldsbestcricketclub.com as well, and that's where you sign up.
Brilliant. Simon, thank you so much for joining us. It's a real honour to have a former Durham student on the show.
Absolute pleasure to talk to anyone from Durham, Seb. Very, very good. And, enjoy the remainder of your studies, because it's probably the best time of your life.
Yeah, well, I hope so. Great stuff. And good luck to all our listeners with all your essay writing and dissertations. And we'll be back on A View from the Stands.